cut into, and I always bring my evidence. I always bring my evidence when Dabu was in here talking about that the Twah come out of Central East Africa. Okay? Okay, that they was in Central East Africa. This is also Northern Africa. Okay? The Twah went all over the planet Earth. They went all over the planet Earth. Now, when you're looking at Egypt, if you see, they ain't gonna give you the whole word so you don't know. Okay? Egypt come out of the word Egypticus. Okay? And from the understanding that I'm getting, that white scholars will tell us, is that it was the Greek translation of the Egyptian name for Memphis, the first capital of Egypt, which they call Hekapatah. Here, right here, you see Ptah. And Bes is also one of the forms of Ptah. Okay? So when you look up and you see Egypt, when you look up and see Egypt, what y'all don't understand, that they took the AH off the end. It's Egyptah. So the Greeks, Egypticos, they knew where the origin of the nation came from. It came from the Twah. And you see Bes right there over there with the leopard skin on. That's the symbol of the Nile Valley craft system. Keep your eye on that, the leopard skin. And we're going to also return to Ptah because Imhotep's spiritual father was Ptah. So you think Imhotep didn't know where he came from? It came up out of the south. Egypticus, it was named after the house and soul of Ptah. And you see Bes also there. So the two oldest deities of the Nile Valley, Bes and Ptah, are the Twah and the Hutu, which come up out of Central East Africa. Now, a lot of people don't know that, but in many instances, Ptah is represented as a Twah. Right there. And now, when you study where these peoples come from, you know right now, they primarily live in the Congo region. Okay? Right around the Ituri Forest, that's over in this region. All of that is lush. All of that is lush. And then that's a rainforest. Bes is the old, Ptah is the two oldest deities in Egypt. You got to know that, okay? And once you understand that, when you say Egypt, Ptah, you see the PT on the end. You just add the AH, Ptah. So they knew from the very beginning where the origins of Egypt came from, okay? They knew, but they're not going to give you the information. They ain't supposed to give you the information. Half of the shit that they don't know, they go and they ask the African, you understand? Yeah, what is this? And they don't never tell you they asked the African. And then they try to take some credit for it. And these are the Twah that's in the Congo today. That's where they reside at in Africa today. In the Ituri Forest. And here's some of the different types of Twah, Akai Twah, Bakai Twah. Now listen to that. You can look that up. You can hear some of the metal now that's still being practiced right now today. Now you see that X? You see that on who? Ptah. You see it on the side at times too. You understand what I'm saying? You need to look into that.
The X had nothing to do with no St. Andrew's X. That is an African X that goes all the way back to the Cushites, who used the X for the resurrection of the body. It was called the caressing of the body. That goes all the way back to Asar, who came up out of Ethiopia, showing this is a caressing, where the idea of Christ came from, for the metamorphosis, for the spirit to leave the body, that I dealt with in Christianity last time. That's why in Ethiopia, you see the body wrapped up like a mummy. For a metamorphosis, like a caterpillar crawling on the ground, it forms into a cocoon. A metamorphosis takes place what? A butterfly. So it had nothing to do with a physical body, but a spiritual body.
See the brother, this is the Ituri Forest. This is where they reside, which is in the Congo, you understand, and other parts of that area, but it's the second largest rainforest on the planet behind the Amazon rainforest. Now right here, this is the Narmer's palette, and there's a lot of science on this palette. You can look it up, the Narmer's palette. Aha Narmer was from Nikan, which is the third Nomi. I'm going to show you the Nomis. They are counties or districts on the Nile. It was 42. 22 in Upper Egypt, Kemet, 20 in Lower Kemet, Egypt. The Twah Ptah brings religion into Kemet, Maryland. Let me see this one. Okay. Now, right here, you see right here the Twah. These are the priests. And you see they got what you call totem pole. You see right there the two falcons, Haru. So even before Kemet, Haru was already a deity. The Twah, if you look right there in the middle of the palette, you see the Twah, the priest at this time. And you see the queen is in front of Nama. She coming down there to check to see if Nama did what Daddy, King of Nubia, then told him to do. And if he has not done it, she gonna go back and tell Daddy. And Nama ass gonna be in trouble. But at this date, it shows you that the priesthood is the Twah. You see, the early priests of Kemet were the Twah. That's why Ptah is the oldest deity of ancient Kemet, because he's a Twah. But the Twah Ptah brings religion into Kemet. Okay, he's the first supreme deity of Kemet. And there it is, the Twah right there, holding the totem poles. And you see them even in the Americas, where they put their deity atop a pole. This shit has been taken all over the world by the Twah. This is the Twah right here. These are the original peoples of this planet. They went all over the world. Read signs and symbols of primordial man. Go back to black man of the night. Go back to Sheikh Diop. Don't let that fool turn you away from them grandmaster teachers. And so now that you know that, you need to study the small peoples. You understand? They was got the oldest bones all over the planet. Okay? They got some of the oldest bones all over the planet. They even over in the Indian region, over there in India, all through Australia, that these people had traveled all around the world. And they was the ones that invented the stellar calendar. So now that you know that, you need to study the small people. You understand? They was got the oldest bones all over the planet. Okay? They got some of the oldest bones all over the planet. They even over in the Indian region, over there in India, all through Australia, that these people had traveled all around the world. And they were the ones that invented the stellar calendar. So now that you know that, you need to study the small peoples. You understand? They was got the oldest bones all over the planet. Okay? They got some of the oldest bones all over the planet. So now that you know that, you need to study the small peoples. You understand? They was got the oldest bones all over the planet. Okay? They got some of the oldest bones all over the planet. They even over in the Indian region, over there in India, all through Australia, that these people had traveled all around the world. And they was the ones that invented the stellar calendar. So here we got Akhenon's daughter. And so we got this queen over here from the Manjbetu tribe out of Central Africa. Look it up. M-A-N-G-B-E-T-U. Manjbetu tribe, if I'm pronouncing that right. And the babies, they stretch, they put some type of apparatus on the head, and they mold it. They mold them heads like that. Okay? They mold the heads like that. It's some spiritual attributes to that. I'm not sure what it is, but that's some research that y'all could do. Manjbetu tribe, if I'm pronouncing that right. And the babies, they stretch, they put some type of apparatus on the head, and they mold it. They mold them heads like that. Okay? Manjbetu tribe, if I'm pronouncing that right. And the babies, they stretch, they put some type of apparatus on the head, and they mold them heads like that. Okay? The babies, they stretch, they put some type of apparatus on the head, and they mold them heads like that, okay? And you see it right there, and you see the wrap, this wrap, I don't know if there's some coils in this or not,
right?
But this is what stretches the head to make it, long, elongated like that.
Right.
Again, you see the queen. This is Akhenaten. This is Tutankhamun's wife, Akhenat's daughter. And you can see right here the head. It's the same head, family, which shows that all African tribes and peoples was in Kemet. Okay? They done went in there and carved all the other ones off the damn walls to give you the picture that was the only type of people you seen in Kemet. That's bullshit. All these African types that you see all over Africa was in Kemet.
That's right.
And that's what made it as great as it was. This is Tutankhamun. See that head? See that head? See that even the lump right there? See that? It's the same head. This is the Mbuti tribe. And I think that's right around, it's in Central East Africa. You look it up. It's M-B-U-T-I. Look it up. Find out where it is. You can see it in Akhenaten's daughters. That's Akhenaten's daughter right there. You see it in, they stretch the head out with a process. So that shows you that these Africans were in Kemet. They were in Kemet. Kemet comprises all of the Africans that you see in Africa today. know that. You need to study the small peoples. You understand? They was got the oldest bones all over the planet. Okay? They got some of the oldest bones all over the planet. Now, see this brother right here? He's from the San peoples. See them high bones up in there? Now look over here. See it? See it? See it? He's in Kemet. He's in Kemet. He's in Kemet. Okay? So I don't know what the hell they be talking about. All these types was in Kemet. But they not going to teach it so you can see it that way. Right there, Amenhotep III. The Grand Master. This Amenhotep III. You see the slants in his eyes. Okay, just like you see the west in the west in Cambodia, you also see in Egypt. Who are these people? These are the see the Khoisans in southern Africa. You can see the slants in their eyes. Tribes and peoples was in Kemet, okay? They done went in there and called all the other ones off the damn wall to give you the picture that was the only time showed that all African tribes and peoples was in Kemet. Okay? Then he went in there and called all the other ones on the damn wall to give you the picture that was the only type of people you seen in Kemet. That's bullshit. All these African types that you see all over Africa was in Kemet. Okay? This BBC documentary tells us about the Great Dwarf deities of Egypt, Bes and Ptah. This BBC documentary tells us about the Great Dwarf deities of Egypt, Bes and Ptah. This BBC documentary tells us about the Great Dwarf deities of Egypt, Bes and Ptah. This BBC documentary tells us about the Great Dwarf deities of Egypt, Bes and Ptah. BBC documentary tells us about the Great Dwarf deities of Egypt, Bes and Ptah. Here is two deities, the two earliest deities of Egypt, Ptah and Bes, both being members of the craft. You know craftsmen by the leopard skin and the leopard head. This lets you know that they were members of the sacred craft. See Bes? And the brothers still today are wearing the leopard skins. They still wear them. This is proof positive that science came up out of Southern Africa. Now right here you see Bes right here throwing up his black power. Black power. Black power. All right then. And you see that the lion is his zoo type. Now, when you see the lion, you got to understand that this is symbolic of Bes with the tongue hanging out. Many statues show Bes with his tongue hanging out. It means words of power. When he opened up his mouth, it represents words of power. Now, to the right, that's a god from India, Kali, go look it up, with the tongue hanging out. It shows that the Nile Valley Africans have went to the extremes of Asia and took knowledge. All the way to Japan, China, the Africans went all over the world taking this damn knowledge. If you look at the Olmec calendar, the so-called Maya calendar, the Mayan ain't got no damn calendar. They ain't even been on the damn planet long enough to do the damn calculations. And these niggas keep talking about the Mayan calendar, 2012. Bring it in, okay? And so this is the Olmec calendar. And here you see the origin of that. To speak, you understand what I'm saying? What it said, like a tongue, that like a two-edged sword. When you speak wisdom and you speak knowledge, this is what this is. And I can show you where this representation of Bes went all over the world. All over the world. Went into the islands of Asia, went to Australia, New Zealand, went to India, went to Sumeria, went up into Europe, went to the Americas. Okay? Egypt dominated the world. And people gotta quit letting you gotta quit letting these people tell you about the scope of African history. Egypt ran this goddamn globe. See Bes? You got Bes on the left. Now this right here, is in India.
Yeah.
This right here is in India. Can you see it? Anytime you see that tongue sticking out, that's best. That's best. Went all over the world. That's right there to show you the Nile Valley Africans was the ones that colonized the whole planet Earth. That's Makali. See the tongue sticking out? See Bass? Makali with the tongue sticking out. That's India. Go look it up. Makali. M-A-A-K-A-L-I. Makali. Look it up. So now that you know that, you need to study the small peoples. You understand? They was got the oldest bones all over the planet. Okay? They got some of the oldest bones all over the planet. They even over in the Indian region.
Pepi II, over 4,000 years ago, who made an expedition in the Punt, just like Sahara did. So he also made an expedition to his homeland, his spirit land, the land of our ancestors. And also Pepi, over 4,000 years ago, who also retrieved the Twah, who our ancestors saw that they were the children of God.
During young Pepi II's reign, his viceroy to Nubia wrote to him to say he was returning with a pygmy. The excited Pepi wrote back with instructions. The viceroy was so honored at receiving this long letter from the young pharaoh that he had it carved outside his tomb in Aswan for all to see.
Come forth to the palace immediately. Leave everything and bring the pygmy. When he goes down with you to the boat, put strong men one on either side of him. Take care lest he fall in the water. When he sleeps at night, appoint trusty people to sleep with him in his tent. Inspect him 10 times a night. My Majesty wishes to see this pygmy more than the produce of the Sinai and Punt.
And so again, we see again the black god Ptah. And right there, that's where the Muslim got the Kufi. From Ptah. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
It's still your history. I'm not mad. Don't get mad at me. Damn, Ptah still your history. Niggas still get mad. Abu got a Kufi on right there. You look like Ptah. You look like Ptah, black man. You look, goddamn, if you could just stand right next to him sideways. That's you. And I go back. That's you right there, Abu. Flat out. That's you, man. Goddamn, I wish I had a camera, dog. I'll put you up there.
Okay, this first slide is a sculpture of the god, which we call, or Neter, which we call correctly Ptah. Ptah is said to be the great architect of the universe. He is the one who uttered and brought forth the creation. He is considered to be the great mind. And Ptah, as the creation, the Memphite theology story tells the story of Ptah. Ptah rose up in the form of a primeval hill and uttered, and from the core of his inside, uttered forth life. He called forth Atam, fire, and fire emerged, and from fire all life was created.
This is God, God is best, and we're going to trace God, God is best, because God, God is best is again the short-statured African, the Hutu and the Twah coming out of Central Africa. And we use a sister in our trip to Egypt to illustrate the short-statured African. Remember this, your Hutu and Twah. What is God best? It's the oldest known representation of God on earth. There's no other place that you can go and find where there is a God older than God, God is best. So God, God is best is an African God, male and female principle, coming out of Zaire, Tanzania. And this would be the short-statured African and Twah who will populate the earth. This is the God that went along or goes along with that short-statured African. Showing you God, God is best up close, short-statured African. And what does God, God is best has around her neck? A shrunken head of a cheetah. You're going to find this is in Egypt. But why is this God, which comes out of Zaire and Tanzania and Uganda, doing in Egypt? And why a cheetah head? Why? Because remember, as Dr. Ben tells us and reminds us, Egypt is not the originators of the high culture. It comes from Zaire As he says, the high priest says of Hunefa, we come from the beginning of the Nile where the God happy dwell. So it is these short-statured Africans who will begin to come up the Nile and establish civilization in Ethiopia, Sudan, and then it will come to the high point in Egypt. So here is a God, Goddess Best, which originates from Central Africa with the cheetah head, telling you that they're dealing with plains animals, which is now the central god of Egypt, showing you the commonality between us and the different groups of civilization along the Nile.
Imhotep's spiritual father was Ptah. So you think Imhotep didn't know where he came from? It came up out of the south. Egypt, Ptah, land of the Twah. Remember that.
The Matrix is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
One of the things that recently happened in the United States I want to bring to your attention, those of you who have gone to Las Vegas, Nevada, have recently witnessed where they have built a replica, or tried to build a replica of Horm Akhet, one of the most ancient colossals, not only built right here on the African continent, but the most ancient colossal on the planet Earth. And they made him with blue eyes and white skin. And not one word is said that this is an African architectural structure. And even put a pyramid, and they even have Tut's hut. So the sad thing is that people from all over the world go here, and not one word is mentioned that this is an African architectural structure. Not one word is mentioned that this belongs to African people. And the sad thing is that many Africans who go there and spend their money don't even realize it themselves. So brothers and sisters, you are at one of the most spectacular sites right here, and that is Horm Akhet, who the Greeks call the Sphinx, over 240 feet long and over 65 feet high. Keep in mind, if you look at his ears, 6 feet tall, that means you can stand inside of his ears. Look how massive this colossal is. Standing here from the dawn of time, who the Arabs call him Abu Hal, or meaning the Great Father. And truly the Great Father of time. And now, through documentation and excavations, some have even documented that Horm Akhet may go back to the time of the Badarian Age. Reconstruction have taken place down through the ages. Many European Egyptologists have said that this is Khafra of the 4th dynastic period.
A National Geographic article showed the face of Chephren imposed by a computer on the Sphinx. According to Dr. Mark Lehner, with the face of Chephren, the Sphinx came alive. Alive. Maybe. But does the face of the Great Sphinx even resemble the pharaoh Chephren? The traditional view says it does. But to John West, that answer was unsatisfactory. He decided to consult an expert, someone who works with faces every day. New York City detective Frank Domingo is one of America's leading forensic experts. A 26-year police veteran, he wrote a manual in the art and technique of facial identification used today by police investigators all across the nation.
If you had those photographs, taken exactly.
If anyone could tell if the Sphinx was Chephren, it was Detective Frank Domingo. Detective Domingo and team photographer Caroline Davies went to photograph and measure the controversial statue of the pharaoh Chephren. Using standard police procedure, Caroline photographed side and frontal views eye level to the statue. These mugshots would be compared to similar views of the Sphinx. In addition, precise measurements of facial features and angular proportions were taken. If the face of the Sphinx was meant to be the pharaoh Chephren, then it should resemble his statue in the Cairo Museum.
One of the questions we often get about Egyptian art is just how lifelike is it? How accurately does it reproduce the physical features of the subjects that are represented? Well, we often hear that Egyptian art is purely symmetrical. You could draw a vertical line bisecting the nose and on a statue, and all the features on the right would be the mirror images of those on the left. But you know what? That's not true. In fact, it's absolutely wrong. If you, in fact, do find a statue that is absolutely symmetrical, where all the features on the right are different from those on the left, you know what you have? You have a forgery. Because the Egyptians were very canny observers of the human condition. They realized that one eye on a face is always a little bit lower than another eye. One nostril may be a little bit larger than another nostril. And they showed those details.
Look at the prognathism on the Sphinx.
That's the extension of the lower portion of the face. You won't find that on the statue of Chephren. This statue does not protrude. That's this part of the face.
Frank also observed that the face of the Sphinx is more square, while Chepren's face is more oval. Proportionately, the mouth of the Sphinx is larger, while Chepren's mouth is a little finer. The eyes of the Sphinx are quite large in comparison to those of Chephren. After completing his initial observations in Egypt, Detective Domingo returned to New York to analyze his findings. Does the Sphinx look a little worried to you? I wonder what the penalty is for impersonating a pharaoh. A procedure for measuring proportions, angles, and shapes had to be established before a comparison could be made. Comparison of the facial shapes was made more difficult due to the severe damage on the face of the Sphinx. Nevertheless, Detective Domingo established enough points of reference to make a comparison with the statue of Chephren possible. These points were the chin, the outer corner of the eye, and the brow ridge. While a study of the frontal view showed significant differences, the comparison of the lateral view was decisive. When the reference points in this lateral view were connected with vertical and horizontal lines, the difference of angles on the two works was extreme. The most conclusive finding was the angle between the outer eye and the vertical. In Chephren, that angle measured 14 degrees. But on the Sphinx, the angle was more than double, 32 degrees. This explains the protrusion of the lower jaw found on the Sphinx, but not on Chephren.
After reviewing all the measurements, angles, and proportions, it's my conclusion that the Great Sphinx of Giza is not the same individual represented in the statue of the pharaoh Chephren.
If the Sphinx isn't Chephren, who is it? Some eminent visitors over the years, among them Gustave Flaubert, thought the Sphinx was black African. According to Zulu history, in ancient times, their people inhabited northern Africa. When the rain stopped and the region became Sahara, the Zulu migrated south. This view now has some support. In his detailed report, Frank Domingo suggests that the face of the Sphinx is consistent with typical African facial structure. After the New York Times published its op-ed piece on Domingo's work, orthodontist Sheldon Peck wrote a letter, independently arriving at the same conclusion. Orthodontists work with facial bone structure on a day-to-day basis. Wouldn't that be a twist on history? If the face of the Sphinx was meant to represent a black African king...
Let's go and see, as I said in pre-dynastic times, representing the Shimsu Haru, let's go back and see who Horm-Aki goes back to. With a little Twah, who our ancestors, even known as the Sebenetos, who was during that time of the pre-dynastic period known as the Twah, and even Bes. That's where you see his origins go back to, who the Africans built this. So here we have all proof and documentation of where the origin of Horm-Aki, and all who comes before him, like the Europeans you see here, have to look up at this and see the beginning when Napoleon was documented in Los Angeles Times, that when Napoleon visited the Sphinx in 1798, everything but the head had been buried in sand, although his soldiers reputedly used the head for target practice. But we know it's a new day today, and it's the first day today. So you may not grasp where you have been until you go back and lay your eyes down and Horm-Aki come into your sleep.
Egyptah, land of the Twah. Remember that. Which showed that all African tribes and peoples was in Kemet.